we are getting ready to get going with our session today on the millionaire mindset or millionaire thinking. And we will be back in 5 minutes, well, a little bit less than that. So I invite you to get yourself ready, get your notes, get your coffee, get your tea, anything you need, and we will return shortly. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock, so we will get started. And thank you for joining us today. I'm Becky Amble, and you are in Ready, Set, Grow. Welcome, and I'm glad to see you. We are going to be talking about how millionaires think today and see if we've got those thoughts or if we need to add some or if we need to get rid of some ideas that we might have. As usual, I'm going to get our screen share back. And we are going to start, here's our agenda for today. We are going to start by doing our kinesiology. We're going to check in a little bit. We're going to talk about where we are in the process, and then we will get into our content for the day. Good morning, Lori. Nice to see you. All right, you know the drill. We're going to get up and do our kinesiology. And I'm going to hope to not lose the wheel on my chair. So the first thing we're going to do, because we want to get our brains engaged and get both sides of our brain working, is to do this. If you'd prefer to put on loud, blaring music and jump around, you can do that. But applied kinesiology is really the way to connect both sides of your brain. So the first thing we're going to do, yeah, I kind of threw you off kilter there, didn't I, is opposite elbow to opposite knee as much as you can. So if you're able to stand and do this, touch your elbow to your knee. If that's not possible, then just use your hand and tap. And if you're not able to stand, do this from your chair. The idea is opposite elbow to knee or hand, because that connects both the right and left hemisphere of our brain. So we love having our brains engaged. Now we're going to put our hands together and we're going to do a figure 8. So we've got a few of those done. And now the tricky one is you put the backs of your hands together, link your fingers, push out, and bring your hands in. I don't know if there's a better way to explain it. Okay, one more. Well, actually, we're going to do 2 more. Back your hands together, link the fingers, push out, and bring in through the middle. And we're going to do the last one. All right, back of your hands together, link the fingers, push out, and bring them together. Hey, we are good to go. And as I usually tell people, there's another way you can do this. You can do also where you take your non-dominant hand and do a figure 8 on a piece of paper. I like doing these because I think it's helpful to get up and get moving. So let's move on. Checking in. If you've got any comments, questions, always put them in the Facebook group. You're welcome to do that. And we're going to talk about where we're at in this process. Last time we did vision, mission, and values. And I would be curious to know how that exercise went with you, especially if you got to the values and were able to bring in any colleagues that you work with or contractors or however your business might be set up. And vision and mission obviously drive our organizations. And I did post in the group a video that I made. Well, actually, yeah, it's a video, but it's basically a meditation to help you go through the vision process. So you can take a look at that if you haven't gotten to that. Next, I encourage you to be ready. I use things like a notebook. I use my little note cards, index cards, and use whatever works for you. I love the index cards. Frankly, now what I've been into a little bit is my little, I'm not sure if you can see this because I see Lori and I don't see me. Anyway, so I've been using this little notebook and it forces me, just like the index cards, it forces me to be very specific. And when I'm having a lunch meeting, a coffee or whatever, I use my little notebook, and that is where I put my action items so I can keep track of what I need to do and keep straight what's going on in the world. Also, as you can see, here is a copy of the journal that I released in January. Some of you have that. If that's a useful tool for you, you can use those dividers or do whatever you want and use the journal as a way to keep track of your ideas. Probably you'd want to not be using that for your note taking, rather use it when you are reviewing your notes and saying, okay, here's the thing I want to work on. If you are using a mind map, here's the personal mind map, and I usually put that up because it's so easy and universal for us all to look at. If you're using a mind map, awesome. Just use that to collect your thoughts. And again, last week we did vision, mission, and values. And we are going to keep moving forward. And you'll notice that there's some overlap on things that we talk about. That's just the natural occurrence. And everybody's in a different place. You might look at a lot of what we covered today and you might say, I already know that. Well, cool. Might be new to somebody else. Or you might find some new things or some little ideas that were reminders that you think maybe you'd forgotten and want to remember. The whole process that we're going on takes 12 sessions or 3 months. And most of you know, I also have a membership group that is a paid membership group. And that's where we work step by step on putting together your marketing plan. So some of you might be at the point where you want to do that, or you might want to do it after this, or you might be all set. Just want you to know that that is where we go step by step, putting together all the nuts and bolts to put together the detail on your plan to grow. Next time, we're going to be talking about getting your customers to love you. We always want to have customers love us. In the second main category, I've titled it Get Set, and that's things like getting on target, having revenue streams that make sense and make money, upselling and cross-selling. And there will be 4 sessions. Those are the 3 topic areas. Then the last pillar is called Grow, where we're kind of pulling together things a little bit more, do a little to get a lot, master the money, because we need to make sure we understand our financial situation, and then pulling together your A team. Today, in Think Like a Millionaire, one of the areas that millionaires think about is the financial side. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll get into that more as we get further on. Here's a quote, or really the essence of what we're trying to do today. So we want to find out, how do millionaires think? Do we think like that? So this is designed to empower you, small business owner and leader, with the essential mindset and strategies to help you achieve your success on your journey as an entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about some key aspects about how Millionaire thinks. We're going to go through the habits. There's a separate category, and that's what we start with, is the habits. And we're going to do that fairly quickly. Some of those, well, frankly, we could spend a day probably just covering habits. And we're going to go through them fairly quickly because I don't spend a ton of time on mindset. I usually am more on the nuts and bolts, the hands-on, how do we do things? And mindset and our thought process is extremely important. And that might be something you want to dig into a little bit more. The other thing is there are going to be 2 things in the file or guide section on that Facebook group that you can look at. One is a list of some of these habits, and you can rate yourself on a 1 to 5 if you're interested in doing that and say, I just want to see how I'm doing. Or you could use it as a checklist, and you could say, all right, these are things I want to work at. I'm going to just prioritize them. And as I get better at them, I'm going to check them off my list. And maybe if there's 10 on that list, you might be good at 5. Just use either of those or both of them if that makes sense to you. And if you don't have any interest in that, that's okay too. Let's start first with how a millionaire thinks. And well, actually, we're going to get into the habits first. So these are the 10 areas that we're going to talk about. And some of them I'll talk about more, and some of them will be briefer. And many of them, I'm going to share ideas that other businesses have used to make the points, instead of saying, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, do those. Some of them I'm going to share actual business cases. And I think that presents it in a little different way. So we kind of have it a couple different ways. We're going to mix it up today. Let's talk then about the habits and the beliefs. And probably none of these are going to come as a real eye-opener. I don't know. These are based on the research that has been done of millionaires and what are their habits and beliefs. So first, we're going to talk about passion and drive. Obviously, if you're going to be successful and you're an entrepreneur or running a small business, you've got to have passion and drive. And that's why, as well, your vision from last session is so important, because that's the part I really think that gets us out of bed in the morning. That's the part that gets us so fired up that we're going to overcome whatever it is to accomplish our goals. Second is visionary thinking. And for most small businesses, entrepreneurs, we need to be thinking further down the road. And if you did your vision and you thought about 1, 3, 5 years, hopefully you also were thinking about that 5 to 10 year time span, because we need to be thinking out there. We need to be thinking of what kinds of things are emerging in the marketplace, what kind of problems are emerging. If you are familiar at all with EOS or the book Traction, that is a great model to use, because they separate visionary from the implementation. And I don't know, one of these days I might actually put together the quiz. They've got a kind of a quiz, a checklist thing to help you decide if you're a visionary or if you're an integrator. And sometimes it's helpful to do those self-assessments. A third point here is strong belief and confidence. You're not going to be successful. We know that if you don't have a strong belief in what you're doing and the confidence to accomplish it. A strong work ethic, that's been proven as well. If you're going to accomplish something, you're going to have to put the effort in. Now, I think I have my quote from Teddy Roosevelt here. I love Teddy because, of course, being a North Dakota kid, he spent time in North Dakota, so he's our hero, and my high school was named after him. Anyway, he said, nothing worth having was ever achieved without effort. And we know that, don't we? And yet sometimes, do we lose our oomph and get a little bit, I don't know, demotivated or depressed even sometimes? And we need to revisit all of this and remember, yes, I got to keep working and working. Resilience and adaptability, again, key things that those that are going to be successful are going to be resilient. Keep going and adapting, because things change. Our customers change, their needs change, the marketplace changes. So we need to be adaptable. Sometimes people will say flexible. Continuous learning, those are also habits. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Strong leadership skills. If we're not going to be a leader, we're probably not going to have much of a team. And these skills can also be learned. Networking and relationship skills, we'll dig into that a little bit more. And I think most people that are successful in business, if they're not good at networking and relationship building, somebody on their team has to be. And hey, maybe that's not a strong suit. That's okay. You can get better at it. And you can bring in teammates or colleagues that you work with that can fill in on that. Financial management skills. This is such an important area. And it's also an area that a lot of us don't like, might not want to deal with, might find it confusing. It's a whole nother language to learn sometimes. Yet, if we don't know what our financial situation is, we're not going to be around too long. And then flexibility and agility, which kind of is a little bit like 0.5 here, resilience and adaptability. We just need to be able to not only stay focused, but we need to adjust when we need to adjust. And there's times that we're going to have to adjust our plan. For the last year, one of my top priorities was increasing awareness in the marketplace. So I've been doing a lot more speaking than I had been doing the last few years. And I used to speak a lot. It was almost, I guess you could have called it one of my profit centers. And one of my business friends said, Becky, you got to get out there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. So that was one of my priorities this last year, was really increasing exposure, awareness. And again, we all have things that we're really good at and things that we're not so good at and things that we want to do and don't want to do. We just have to make the decision. Now, my top priority is connecting with CEOs. That's my number one thing I've started that and will continue in next year. Now, the things that I'm going to share with you too, I don't care how you keep track of this, make notes, there's going to be a fair amount of information. And what I'd like you to think about, hopefully I'll remember to stop and ask you this, is after we cover a section, I don't know about you, sometimes I'm not so great at keeping track of great information. And I'm going to encourage you to take a highlighter or your pen if you're making notes and star things, mark things. This is where I love index cards, because like when we go over now the financial management and you go, oh, yeah, that point number 3, I got to work on that. If there's something here that grabs you, I think write it down or come back. We'll try to do a little review on some of this. Anyway, let's get going here. Financial management. And wealth creation. So important. I'm going to tell you about a company called Amble Consulting and what they did. They are a firm that specializes in digital marketing strategies for small and medium-sized businesses. So they work with people like us, and they faced some financial challenges and struggled to achieve sustainable growth despite having a talented team and a good reputation. So they had a lot of things that were positive and working for them. What happened then is that John, the president, he realized that this was a deficit that he had. So he went on a journey to enhance his financial literacy and implement some wealth creation strategies. So we're going to talk about some of the things that he did. First, he embarked on a big knowledge kick, really learning and teaching himself. He went to classes, he read books. There's a book that I spent a little bit of time on that might be a useful one. And I don't know if you like the books for dummies. This was one where you can do accounting for dummies and find something. If you're going to teach yourself, I think it's really good to also find some resources, and you can do that without spending a pile of money. If there's somebody that you just need to have them walk you through some of the basic things. And we'll be doing that, but we don't get to that till I think it's session 10. Also, so other than delving into this, he also got into budgeting and cash flow management and put together a comprehensive budgeting system that tracked his expenses, set some revenue targets, and monitored cash flow. And those might sound like confusing words. Most of us know expenses and revenue, and we need to really be on top of that, or we're not going to do so well. So he got that put together. And then he was able to allocate his resources more effectively and identify where he was overspending. Sometimes, until we see it in black and white, we don't realize that we've got a bit of a money pit somewhere. So he took then some actions to optimize his cash flow and get a better handle on this. He also, third point here, diversified his revenue streams. After he looked at this, he realized that he had a dependency on a few major clients. And there's that thing we can all fall into, that downfall, I guess you would say. Let's say that we were humming along in our business and all of a sudden we got a big name brand company, 3M, General Mills as a client. We're like, oh, this is great. This is my gravy train. I am home free. Well, the problem is that's called a concentration. Banks don't like that if you go for bank financing. It's also called the Switzerland effect by some other people. And what happens is if you've got one or two really great big clients, something happens, you're kind of left in the dust. So keep in mind that you want to really diversify your revenue streams. It could be the services you offer. It could be the clients and having some diversity there. It could be developing strategic partnerships that help complement your business, that open up new doors. Fourth point here is investment and growth. So he recognized also the importance of investing any extra money that he had to focus on things that would help in his long-term growth. And again, he had some financial people he talked to. So he did a self-study and he got to some experts that helped him really understand how to more strategically use his money. And he did some things like technology upgrading. He did employee training. He put together some promotion activities. And all of this helped him improve his efficiency and expand his business. Remember, I mentioned traction. That is a great resource too for helping really look at your operation. Also, then he monitored his financial metrics. So looking at his balance sheet, his P&L, and we're going to talk about those again, like I said, in a later session. This helped him identify trends because, again, if you're looking at the numbers, all of a sudden things start to jump out at you. I know when I've been on different boards and things, I'm always asking questions about, well, how come this number is so different? How come it changed over the last quarter? What's happening here? How come our depreciation is so high? I mean, I've asked questions where they go, oh, that's not really right. It shouldn't be in that category. You got to keep digging, and in a way you can kind of have some fun with this. You can put on your detective hat. Anyway, Amble Consulting did a number of things. And you might say, yeah, well, I probably had a bunch of people that could do all this stuff. So that's where, again, we got to be realistic and say, wow, is there one thing? Am I good at this? Or do I need to pick one thing where I can make an improvement? Here's what they ended up doing. So they achieved greater financial stability by effectively managing their cash flow, diversifying revenue streams, and reducing dependency on those few key clients that were big. They also improved their sustainable growth because they had strategic investments and they experienced growth by expanding their market presence. They were attracting new customers and generating new revenue. They enhanced their decision-making again because now they had financial records that were at least they had them, and they were probably more accurate. So they could make better decisions because they had the information. And long-term wealth creation, again, by implementing these wealth creation strategies and investing in their business growth, they were able then to position themselves for continued success versus it's just easy when we're in a small business and we don't have a lot of people to focus on the latest crisis. That doesn't get us on a growth plan. Now, just if there was anything that you wrote down where you said, oh, yeah, I like that idea, put it on your index card or go highlight, star it. I put asterisks all over mine. And I was just looking, I had 4 different sessions that I worked with in my mastermind. And I'm like, I got to find the X, Y, and Z. So unfortunately, I had 4 different sessions of notes, but I had things starred. And lo and behold, there was the resource I wanted. Again, just take a couple things, see if there's anything that jumps out at you. Let's look at our next main area, resilience and persistence. Again, I'm going to give you a story, an example about a company named Cable Manufacturing, and they're a B2B company that specializes in producing industrial equipment for various sectors. So they've got some diversity going on there, and they operate in a highly competitive market with rapidly changing customer demands and intense price competition. And despite their success, Cable had faced some significant challenges that threatened their growth and profitability. And even though they were doing all these good things, all of us either were in a competitive environment with price competition, lots of people out there, or we're in a situation where people don't understand what we do. So you could either have the one where everybody's out there, or you're the lone wolf trying to create some awareness and develop your business in the marketplace. I kind of think there's the 2 extremes. Anyway, so Cable wanted to really focus on resilience and persistence. And the first thing is that they were going to adapt to market changes. They understood that they needed to be agile and responsive to market trends. So they proactively monitored industry developments, customer demands, and emerging technologies. They embraced change. So they were able to identify opportunities where they could innovate and adapt their products or processes to stay ahead of the competition. Again, I mean, I'm big on having good information, and we need to pay attention and listen to customers. Usually they will tell us what we need to do. The second point here is developing a growth mindset. So they really worked with the team. And again, you might be a 1-person team. You might be 2 people, you might be 20. It all depends on your organization. Developing that growth mindset. And I like this because they looked at anything that wasn't working, a mistake, something, and they said, okay, how can we use this to learn? How can we improve our operation? How can we use it as a stepping stone? And I know there's multiple books out there that say something like Fail Your Way to Success. And frankly, I kind of think that I would rather look at any mistake or any failure as a learning experience, because that puts it more in a positive framework instead of a negative context. Use whatever makes sense to you. I just have to share that with you because to me, I try to look at things in a different light. The third thing that they did was embraced technology and automation. So to streamline their operations and enhance their efficiency, Cable invested in technology and automation solutions. Now, you might not be in a manufacturing company, yet you can certainly use new technology and automation. And it's not exactly easy sometimes. And if you have a good CRM system or find somebody that can help you with different things you can automate, hey, that makes a big difference. Now, in their case, they integrated some machinery and software systems to optimize production processes. That reduced costs and it improved their overall productivity. And we probably know that sometimes new technology and automation is a pain in the butt, and it takes some time to get it going. And yet once we get it going, that's when we see the return. And then we get really excited and happy. That's when we do our happy dance. Strengthening supplier relationships as well. And again, depending on your business, it might be suppliers, it might be contractors, it might be a strategic alliance that you have. They worked on really improving those relationships with their key suppliers. And they did things like really worked on their communication. They negotiated favorable terms on how they were going to pay things. They developed partnerships with different suppliers based on mutual trust and shared goals. And I know people that will ask you, what are your values? And they only want to work with people that have values that are consistent with them. So you can go through that process as well. Here, they improved the stability of their supply chain. And again, anybody that's been in manufacturing and been through COVID knows what craziness that ended up being. And this also then meant that they could have more timely raw materials and reduce the disruptions in their business because things were flowing more smoothly. The last thing that they did was empower employees. And again, like I said, some of these things show up in multiple places where you might say, well, empower employees, that fits in another category. Yeah, probably does. Anyway, it was one of the things that they do. And they wanted to build resilient employees. And everybody's under stress and lots of demands. So they recognized this and they put together training programs because, again, sometimes our people aren't properly trained. They don't have the experience. We don't know this. Hopefully we find out and we can get the proper training. They also had a mentorship opportunity, and our local expert on mentoring, Lori, is with us today. So talk to her or get her book if you want to do that. And they just really had fostered, partly because of that growth mindset, but then they had that environment that people felt empowered and they were participating and they were engaged, which all of those things are what we want if you keep up on any of the literature. This impacted them just in summary. Because of the things that they were doing, they became a market leader. They surpassed the competition because they were adaptable and they embraced some technology advancements. Again, if like I do a lot of work in artificial intelligence, if that's an area you need help on, let me know. Basically, people are saying when it comes to AI, that in 6 to 12 months, if you're not using AI, you're going to be left in the dust. And that's maybe an extreme example. However, in Cable's case, they were doing things that positioned them to move forward. Sustainable growth, again, they were proactive and they paid attention to market changes, customer needs changing. They improved their operational efficiency. We talked about that because of using automation and different things and really working with their suppliers. And all of this enhanced their reputation because they overcame some challenges and became consistent in delivering high quality products. That positioned them in the marketplace as a reliable and trusted partner in the industry. And those are a couple key things that are going to help propel any of us. If we're reliable, people trust us, they like working with us. These are not revolutionary thoughts. Some of it is pretty common sense. Anyway, take a stop here. Anything that you might have jotted down in your notes, anything grab you here, right now I put on your little index card, anything you want to highlight or star that you go, I want to get back to this, or I want to remember this point.
I definitely like the notes around being someone who's adaptability. And yet I just don't know, because I feel like I'm at such a crossroads, so many things are being trafficked. I don't know until this morning, hearing from you, if I had really been tying it to in your case study, that includes keeping an eye on your industry and trends and what's going, the space in which you're doing business. That's part of you being adaptable. So you know what the environment is, right? It's sort of like where we are in our market, we have 4 different seasons. And so obviously we're adaptive because we're changing out our summer clothes for fall and winter clothes. It just kind of is that simple. So
yeah,
I appreciate that today. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. That's great. And as we talk, like I said, some of these things overlap and you might go, oh yeah. Now that makes more sense. I told somebody, I think it was maybe in the presentation, I don't know, but I thought economics in college was hard. because it was so completely different than everything I'd ever studied. And I'm like, elasticity of demand, yeah, supply demand, some of the basic stuff, but then elasticities and elasticity, all that stuff. And I took it for a year, and I'm sure I got good enough grades, all that kind of stuff. When I went to grad school, we covered 1 year of econ in like a month. And then it was like snap, the new in trend saying snap. I got it. I'm like, oh my gosh, now it all makes sense. So I don't know if it was presented different, if it just sat in my head long enough that it finally sorted out, or what. And so that's where a lot of these things are common sense. They're different ideas, and you hear it a different way or in a different context. And all of a sudden you go, oh, now I get it, or I see how it's relevant to me and my business. And that's why I like giving some of the examples, because it shows it in a different way. All right, let's talk about positive mindset. Again, I think this is an area that a lot of people probably are already good at. Let's see what we can come up with. I'm going to talk about Dana Software, and they are a B2B software company, and they specialize in custom software solutions for businesses. And they had, again, some challenges. They had project delays, they had technical issues, they had clients not too happy, and that led to a couple problems, a decline in their morale and team motivation. You know, you start having problems internally with people. Well, that was one of the turnarounds that I did, because the whole culture had gone down the toilet. Anyway, we won't get into that story. We'll just talk about Dana. And here's the things that they did. First, embraced a growth mindset. And again, we kind of talked about that in the last one. They encouraged their employees to grow mindset by believing in their ability to learn and improve. They emphasized that setbacks were opportunities for growth, and they encouraged people to view those failures as a learning experience. I kind of gave you my song and dance on that. This mindset shift allowed employees to approach challenges with resilience and optimism. Way better approach than just going, oh yeah, that's the way it is here. Guess we're losers. Number two, celebrating successes and milestones. This is a great thing. And I'm not very good at this myself, and I know some people that are excellent at it. So you want to create a positive environment, and they would celebrate successes and milestones. They recognized individual and team achievements, whether they were big or small, and they highlighted them during team meetings and through internal communications in the organization. And there's different ways you can do this. Anyway, this boosted morale and reinforced a sense of accomplishment and fostered a positive atmosphere. Who doesn't want to hear you're doing a good job and attaboy, or Bob did a good job, or Mary did this really cool thing? It just brings us all along. Third thing is providing support and development opportunities. Again, this company was really astute, just like John in the previous company. They invested in employee development by offering training programs, mentorship initiatives, here we go, mentoring again, and opportunities for professional growth. They provided resources and support to help their team employees enhance their skills and overcome challenges. And they invested in the team's growth and success, and created that culture of positivity and continuous improvement. And I think there's sometimes people get kind of hung up on continuous improvement. If we have that mindset of we're always doing better, we're always improving, versus we're not good enough, because sometimes people, I think, get into the continuous improvement and they go, oh, well, we're just not good enough. Well, you are good enough, and there's always an opportunity to get better. So keep in mind that continuous improvement. They encouraged open communication and feedback. Again, they changed their culture. They changed it, and they fostered a culture of open communications where employees felt comfortable sharing their ideas, concerns, and feedback. And a lot of times it's like, well, you really want my input? People don't know, and they don't know if they're going to be supported. So they created that environment, which was really, really helpful. And that open dialogue created a supportive and collaborative environment. So now they were really working together and contributing to a positive mindset across the organization. It was throughout the organization. And they also promoted a work-life balance, like I said already, and it's no eye-opener for any of us, just the stress that a lot of people are under. People are burning out. It's a confusing and challenging time for most of us. And this company recognized the work-life balance and encouraged employees to prioritize their well-being. So they made a point of saying, be sure you take care of yourself. They implemented flexible work arrangements. They promoted self-care practices, and they encouraged employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. This helped reduce stress levels, improve job satisfaction, and contributed to a positive mindset. When you have less stress, people are happier, and you have a positive mindset, you'll also have a positive bottom line. One of the things when I was at Medtronic, it wasn't very well utilized. We had a meditation room. And I would go down there, probably one of the few people. And I almost thought, oh, do people see me going in and out of here? Do they think this is weird? You got to do what you got to do. And maybe you do something like that. Or maybe you start out a meeting and you use applied kinesiology like I do, just break up things and do something a little different. Well, let's just highlight some of their improvements. So they improved their client relationships because all of what they were doing with their mindset fostered a customer-centric approach, which we hear a lot about. And that led to better communications with the clients, with the internally, they had better communications. And of course, better communications with the client leads to higher satisfaction and improved their long-term business relationships. They had improved employee engagement. Again, having that positive mindset, encouraging people to talk and contribute, that improved the whole attitude and workforce and their job satisfaction. I know there's studies out there now that job satisfaction is not at a very high level in a lot of companies. A successful project delivery, because again, they were collaborating, they were going back and forth. I don't know if they used Slack or some other software type of thing to improve their communications. Whatever they did, they were working as a team and they were better communicating. And it could be too that they had a better idea that that was important. They had enhanced also the company reputation because they were nurturing that positive mindset that was communicated and became known in their customer base. And so they became known for high quality work, strong client relationships, and that positive work environment, all because of the things that they took and instituted. So Sharpie, I'm sorry, that's not a Sharpie, highlighter, pen, index card. In the story here of this company, is there anything there that jumps out at you and you go, ah, there's an idea, there's one thing. And again, this might be an area you're already good at. All right, we're going to keep moving because we got a lot to cover. Next thing is effective goal setting. And we're going to get into a little bit more on that at the end as well. I'm going to spend a little bit shorter time on this. First thing is to define your revenue goals. And we'll talk about that in the end when we do some action plan work. Think about how much do you need to make this year, need, want, whatever, you pick whatever word you want to use. If you've got your annual number, break it down to month, break it down to week, and really figure out what does that mean. There are a lot of companies out there that probably I could be working with that say things to their bankers. They'll say, the bank will go, how are you doing this year? What's your plan? Or what's your plan for next year? And they say, we're going to sell more. The banker goes, how are you going to do that? We're just going to sell more. They don't have a game plan. They don't know how they're going to get there. Second point, create actionable steps. Obviously, you got that big goal. Now you've got to put together the steps to get there and identify some key strategies that are going to help you that and measure the progress. Whether you call them KPIs or you don't call them KPIs, I don't care. Just figure out what is it that you want to accomplish and then monitor that and see that you're accomplishing that. I wanted to just share a little bit with this company. It's called Real Tech Solutions. They're a B2B software company. They set a revenue goal of increasing 30% for 2023. And during their goal setting process, here's some things that they did, or they identified some actionable steps. First, that they were going to increase their lead generation through targeted digital marketing campaigns. Okay, so lead gen. All right, another word that's thrown out there a lot. Second thing that they did was they enhanced the sales process by providing additional training to the sales team and implementing a customer relationship management program, a CRM. And HubSpot is pretty darn good if you're looking for something free. There's some other ones too. And I've got friends that have gone through and done an evaluation. And I just think HubSpot also has some great free information. I think they're a great company. Anyway, if you're a solopreneur or whatever, maybe some of this is getting additional training for yourself. Or maybe you have a contractor that works on some of these things for you, and maybe that person needs some more training because that's not their skill set, and yet you want some help from them on that particular area. Anyway, the third thing that they did was they improved customer retention by enhancing their onboarding experience and implementing a customer loyalty program. I will say onboarding is not my forte. We talk about it in my paid program, and yet it's really important that the clients that we work with know how we're going to work together and what their job is and what our job is. Now, did anything jump out at you that we just covered quickly here in this goal setting? If so, get out your highlighter, make a star, get your index card. I think you've probably figured out how I do some of these things by now. Point number 6 is continuous learning and personal development. And again, I'm going to give you a few pointers here and an example. This won't be as in-depth as some of the other things that we've talked about. What I want to also remind you, again, this came up in my paid group, was that we were talking about one of the P's of marketing, and it's people. And one of the elements of people is their training and their education. And one of the people is like, oh, wow, these two people work together. We came back after they were working in their groups, and the one came back and she goes, oh my gosh, this is great because I got to make sure I'm getting some training. The other one came back and said, I don't get it. I didn't see anything relevant. I'm just saying, it might be timing. It might be whatever. Some of this makes a sense for you, and some of it you might say, got that, done that, whatever. So we're just going to move on here because everybody's in a different place. And the point I really wanted to make here is continuous learning and personal development. That's us as well. Let's not just look and say it's our team, it's the people we work with, because frankly, it's all of us. The first point here, emphasizing the importance of continuous learning. I think I kind of beat that already pretty much. And we also need to stay up on competition and be able to seize opportunities. So I love that people are here looking at new ideas and new information, because that's how we learn, and maybe it's going to be our competitive advantage. Also, identify learning resources. So identify things like within your industry, as Lori mentioned, industry publications. There is probably more online courses now than we can even stand to think about. There's something that you can probably learn for free almost any day of the year, anytime. Listen to the courses, there's webinars, there's podcasts, there's professional networks, things like that. I personally like doing some things where I get to see people face to face and get to have some human engagement, face to face. Implementing learning routines. This again can be a helpful thing. So integrate continuous learning into your daily routines. I know some people that are in the 5 o'clock group, and they get up at 5 o'clock, and that's where they do some of their meditation, their learning, their whatever works for you. If you can make something kind of a routine. And that's one reason that I'm in Rotary, because once a week we would meet and we have people talking to us about different things, not necessarily business, sometimes social, sometimes nonprofit. It's a great way to keep your brain engaged and be exposed to different opportunities. Again, mentoring, coaching is a great thing. I don't know if this is in any of my notes for this. I thought one of the really cool things when it came to mentoring is that in an organization that was kind of a tech company, they had a mentoring program where the more senior people would mentor the younger people and help them learn the ropes and all that stuff. What was great was almost what I would call reverse mentoring. The young ones were helping the older ones on, here's the new technology, here's the latest buzz, here's this, here's that, here's how my generation talks. And I thought, that might seem obvious to a lot of people. And when I heard them talking about it, I go, oh, that's just brilliant. I love, because that's collaborative and it's the mentoring going back and forth. And if we've got that attitude that we can always be learning something, I mean, I interview my sons, ask them what's going on and try to find out what they're talking about, because, how do we keep up? Anyway, let me just give you a little example here about West Marketing Agency. They subscribed. Here's the things that they did. They subscribed to industry publications and newsletters to stay informed about the latest trends. And also they did a lot of work with customers that were in consumer products. So they kept up on consumer behavior and consumer research. They encouraged employees to attend industry conferences and workshops to gain new insights and expand their professional network. Again, sometimes you just got to have somebody that understands you and what you do that you can call to bounce ideas off. And they established a mentoring program where senior marketing professionals gave guidance and support to the junior team members. And like I said, what I love is when those juniors are helping the seniors. All right. Anything jump out at you there? Anything look like something that you want to take a look at, highlight, star it, index card it?
I wanted Becky to add to what you said about the concept of reverse mentoring is also, I know of, and I experienced this working in a multinational corporation and working on mentoring. Sometimes a longtime seasoned leader will seek out a mentor that has different cultural background so that they get better comprehension around that consumer behavior, the values, all of that. I mean, I'm with you. Just how can we commit to continuous learning? And it looks a little different for each person, but that would be another way as well.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you for adding that, because most of us have somewhere where we have a gap in our experience or knowledge base. All right, let's take a look at this. Again, probably will speed up a little bit here. Calculated risk-taking and adaptability. Primarily is three things: looking at risks and rewards. So here you want to really do some research and look at different opportunities before. Usually it's when we're going to enter a new market or launch a new product or service. And here you want to do your market research. You want to analyze the competition. If it's a new market, you got to go find out who the players are, what they're doing, what their strengths are, and also then assess the demand for products and services. There's different things you could research, and you can do things like you can say, okay, here's the most likely, here's the moderate, here's the low level. People have different ways that they describe it, where it's your best case scenario, your average, your worst case. And again, I would say get an expert to coach you on that, or just do some searching. Oh, artificial intelligence. Yes, you can go to ChatGPT and you can probably say, hey, what's a good way to assess rewards when I'm looking at getting into a new marketplace? And you keep asking questions and it'll probably spit out some really good stuff for you to do. All right, second point, making informed decisions. Again, you know that I'm just a huge advocate of research and information, probably somewhat almost over the top, because I'm always reading different things, some that relate to my business and work and some that don't, just because I want to be able to have a conversation with somebody and be informed. Anyway, you want to particularly look at getting information so that you can make it based on data and market insights. You don't want to just be, oh, okay, Kinko's, big company, sold to FedEx. I used to work with them in this region. It was really hilarious. They said, you live in Woodbury. What do you think about us opening a store in Woodbury? And this was a number of years ago. And I said, well, Woodbury's not quite ready, but there's a lot of action on South Robert Street in West St. Paul. You might want to kind of check that out. I don't think they checked it out. Next thing you know, they got a store there. I'm like, oh, please do your research on this, because they didn't hire me to research it. I just kind of threw that out in conversation. Obviously, Woodbury became a good market, but they were a little bit early when we had that conversation. Anyway, just take a look at getting that information. There's a lot of different places where you can get information. And the last point here was adapting or emphasizing adaptability. And because the market was changing and things were going, well, we're all in changing marketplaces. They needed to pivot their strategies. Well, this particular company, Globe Manufacturing, had to pivot their strategies and make adjustments so that they were more aligned with customer needs and market dynamics. One of the things I really push for is having a customer advisory board. That's another conversation. And I have a book that's, mostly done if I ever get time to finish it. I'm going to skip the example on that one. Did anything kind of jump out at you here as far as your risk analysis, making informed decisions, being adaptable? Anything in particular you want to highlight or make note of? All right. Next thing we're going to do is talk about the art of networking, collaborating, and leveraging relationships. And again, because of timing, I think we'll probably not go through the whole example of, it's a company called Nexus, and that's another consulting company. But what they did was they established strategic partnerships. So one of the things to keep in mind is if you can partner with some industry experts or complementary businesses, this can be a really good move. And that's what Nexus did. So they got into new markets and increased their capacity and credibility in the industry because of their connections. And they provided mutual support with their strategic partners. So they were able to then provide also better solutions to their clients because now they had a partner they could bring in. Another idea is to engage in industry associations. I think that's a really good idea. If there's conference or seminars, there's actually for fractional workers, there's a fractional conference here in Minneapolis. And that is going to be, I believe it's the end of this week. It's sometime this week. I put a post on LinkedIn about that. Anyway, anything that we can do to keep up, keep connected and find out what's going on and build those relationships. Because again, they might open the door for some business. They might be a good source of information. It could be either or. Mentoring and coaching, again, Nexus, the company, they got involved and they connected their experienced people with newer team members to provide guidance, support, and transfer knowledge. And like I said, a lot of those younger ones can transfer knowledge upstream to us as well. And they fostered then this through their mentoring, personal and professional growth, and created a supportive culture within the organization. You start mentoring and connecting with people, it's a whole different ballgame. The business relationship changes. And when you can do that within your company, you really are developing a stronger culture. And the fourth thing was client relationship management, is to work on building those relationships, keeping communications open, having a vehicle where you're communicating with people, get the feedback from your customers, listen to their needs. And frankly, for a lot of people, it wouldn't hurt to be in a seminar on active listening and really beef up those skills again. And they also engaged in local business community. Now I'm going to skip the results that they got, but they were able to grow their business and increase their profitability. Number 9, innovation and industry trends. We kind of covered this again. Like I said, some of these fall into multiple categories. If we focus on innovation and industry trends, first point is to encourage innovative thinking. And we want to encourage people to think outside the box, to do different things. There's exercises you can do. You can, I'm forgetting his name, the guy that's done the books on brainstorming and brain stuff. There's different exercises you can do to really get yourself thinking. And if that is part of your culture, then people are going to be doing more innovative thinking. And also stay informed. We kind of talked about that already, through the industry, through things that you're reading, through webinars, staying informed. And if you are bigger than a solopreneur, it's great to be able to share within your team, because somebody's going to learn something that they can share with somebody else and have information. Usually when I work with companies, I encourage them to do competitive intelligence. And you might, even if you're a larger organization, you might have one person that monitors a certain competition and they just throw stuff in a file folder. And once a month you might get together and say, hey, what have you learned? Person 2 throws stuff in a file folder about another competitor. You don't have to make it really complicated. You just need to do it. And sometimes you need a point person. So if you have enough people in your organization, figure out who's following what. And there you can see it was developing a system for gathering the information. All right. And quickly because we got 5 minutes left. Generosity and giving. There actually is science that shows that giving has a benefit, not only to you personally, but to your business. And this is something that the team that I work with actually works on, because we have something that we call meaningful capitalism. And that really is being in an organization that also supports people, the community. And I call it a win-win. Everybody involved is going to gain. And it really takes us from that scarcity mentality to a generosity or an abundance mentality. It's maybe a separate topic. And there's some places that have implemented corporate social responsibility. That might be something that you want to look up and find out a little bit more about that. Again, these are not complicated ideas here. And by being involved in philanthropic opportunities, you can look at it because it gives you, what is it? Dopamine, endorphins. I forget which it is, but you get a actual brain benefit by doing good. And also, if you're looking at it and saying, well, how about my bottom line? Well, probably you're going to make some great connections and meet some people that could be instrumental in your business. All right. Okay. As we whip through the end here, you need to put together an action plan. There are some things here that we talked about today that you put on your index card or you're highlighted. What you want to do is you want to go back and go, okay, there were 5 ideas I liked. And then you need to prioritize. Can I do all 5? I'm not sure. Will it make a difference if I do all 5? Maybe, most likely. Okay, well, which one is the top one that I start with? Figure that out and put together your action plan. And again, if you're working, like, we'll just use a revenue example. So let's say that you're going to increase your revenue 30%. All right, you want to be specific. Then you've got to lay out your action items on how you're going to accomplish that. So let's just say that there was, where's my example? Okay, well, anyway, so company A says we're going to increase our revenue by 20% next year. What are some things that they need to do? First, they might need to do a market analysis, do some research to identify growth opportunities. So they might say, well, we need to figure out how we're going to grow. They might implement a targeted promotion campaign. They might enhance their sales process. Maybe the sales process is wacky, needs some help. Maybe they need additional sales training. So that could be some specific things. Then you need to allocate the resources to it. So again, if you're going to do any kind of promotion, how much is that going to cost? You need to put that together. Do you need to hire a salesperson? Can you get a contractor on the sales side? Put together the resources that you're going to need. And then put together your metrics. Again, it's not that hard and you don't have to get too carried away. If you've got 1 and 2 and you've identified your specific goal, there's your measurement. If you're going to increase your revenue 30%, 20%, 100%, or you've got a certain number you're working on, there's your metric. And then when in step 2, you identified those key actions, your monthly, your weekly numbers and activities, lay that out. And there, like I said, there's your metrics. You just look back at what you've already come up with and put that as your metrics. Then review and adjust. Obviously, you want to look at things probably at least monthly, often weekly. When I've been doing turnarounds, we're looking at things daily. It's a little bit more intense environment. One of the things too that I wanted to share is that most people are familiar with setting SMART objectives. You want them to be specific, measurable, achievable, and I use relevant or realistic because when I surveyed that one, 50% liked realistic and 50% liked relevant. So yes, I actually do research what I talk about. And then the other one is make sure that your objectives are time-based. What I suggest you do is take 5 minutes a day. You could take more, but 5 minutes every day, first thing. If you're using a mind map, use that. If you said, hey, there's one idea I'm going to work on, review that. How are you coming on your action plan? Maybe the first thing is to put together that action plan for that one idea. Or maybe the first thing is to figure out, you got 5 things you like. What's your number 1? And it's time for us to wrap up. Seems like we always have to hurry at the end. And like I said, everybody's at a different place. Some of this is basic information for some of you. Some of it's new. Some of it, like I said, might just be presented in a different way where all of a sudden you go, oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That'd be a good thing to be doing. Let me know in the group any questions, comments. If you get stuck on anything, we went through this pretty quickly. You can always go back and do a replay. We will see you next time. I look forward to it. Thank you for being here and have an awesome week till we meet again. Bye-bye.